I'm still out on the streets of Billings, Montana, trying to take pictures, trying to find spontaneous moments. But my preference, if possible, is to go up to people and approach them first. Doesn't mean I'm setting them up, but just let them know I'm here. And this is what I'm doing. I'm not a threat.
Okay, so welcome back to another episode of Eyeshot 50mm. And today we're sitting down with Matthew Hives, the winner in the series category of the Eyeshot Open Call 2024 with the beautiful black and white series. Matt is known for his eye for documentary photography and for telling real stories as well. And that's how he also got to the top. So welcome, Matt, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Thank you, Matt, for being here with us. Welcome again. And I would like to leave just a little message for our viewers before we start. Keep liking, keep commenting, keep subscribing, and keep supporting independent street photography, independent publishing, and made in Italy arts and craftsmanship, because what's just one small click to you means the world for us. Welcome again, Matt. Thank you for being here today.
Amazing.
All right.
So, Matt, let's start immediately. Let's just jump right in with the very first question that we really want to know from you. So, who is Matthew Hives, according to Matthew Hives?
I am a photographer. I'm a father, husband. I live in the Rocky Mountain region of the United States, specifically in the state of Montana. And, I'm passionate about all those things I just mentioned. So sometimes I consider myself a photographer. Sometimes I feel like a full-time dad with my two kids. So yeah, I think I wear a few different hats.
Yeah, like all we do. And when was the first time that photography actually entered your life? I want to know a little bit more about your journey into photography. How did it started? What happened? If it was a specific event or something you remember that you felt like this is a game changer for me, what it was?
Yeah, good question. So I think I would start pretty young. I always felt very captivated and drawn just to the imagery I was surrounded by growing up, whether that was like magazines or film, album covers. And so I would say the seed was planted pretty young. I took a lot of art classes even in high school, but I would say I really dove into photography in college at university when I studied photojournalism. I got really into it then. So this would be a long time ago now, but yeah, I would say when I was in college.
Okay. You said just right now that you study again journalism. Is there anything from that background that you feel like you specifically bring to your photography and your photographic vision? If so, what is it?
Absolutely, I would say the confidence and the interest to go out into the world and meet people and learn their stories and have a curiosity. So I've always really liked that about journalism. You have to talk to people, you have to ask them questions, you have to be willing to learn their story and just listen and be quiet and just observe. So I would say the journalism aspect is a big part of it for me. And then
Okay.
obviously the storytelling component I
Hmm.
would say is a big part of photojournalism as well.
Could you elaborate on that a little bit if you want to say something else? Otherwise, I can pass to the other question. It's interesting to know about the storytelling and the journalism approach. It's photojournalism, so it has two things combined just in one. I don't know if you wanted
Yeah,
to elaborate
yeah,
more how you see
yeah.
this
Obviously,
field.
I mean the genre of photography it's quite big. There's a lot of different amazing types of photography, but I think what always really intrigued me the most about photojournalism was that storytelling aspect. Having the opportunity to arrange multiple components or parts of the scene and within your composition to convey a story. That was something that I really gravitated towards. I found that quite compelling and attractive.
Okay. Okay. And before you were saying that you come from Montana, and one thing we always ask our guests is, which is also something very important, you need to know where you come from to know where you're going. And I wanted to ask you, do you think the place where you live, the experience that you have encountered in the city and you are, have shaped your photographic vision in some ways? And if so, in what ways?
Yes, so I would say where I grew up probably shaped my outlook on where I live now even more so.
Okay.
So I live in a rural area. There's it's not a big population, but I grew up in a very metropolitan area in the Bay Area of California. So I know at a young age, I remember just being completely like fascinated by driving out into the country, being in different cities that were like, very small in terms of population. And that was always something that I found quite fascinating. I think it's a lot of, the classic, opposites attract. You want to see how the other half live as you do. So I think that's really what started, my interest in documenting the places like I live today. So it's definitely giving me, I would say a unique perspective. I've lived in the area I live in now, on and off for over 20 years, but I'm not from here. So I do think there's a little bit of a uniqueness to how I interpret it and the things that catch my attention.
Okay. And what keeps you, let's say, tied to the American West? Like, what is it that attracts you? That I mean, if it's a big change, maybe from California. Okay, we're not so informed about it, but I can imagine that it's a totally different kind of approach to life, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's an energy here. There's a pace of life. Things are slower. It's just so utterly beautiful, the landscape. And then, your interest, your activities, things you like to do, all those things are kind of out here for me. But ultimately, I would say it's the pace of life, the scenery, the size of the cities. I love going to big cities and visiting in terms of
Yeah,
living. I like kind
totally
of
different.
the smaller towns.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Thank you. I will pass it on to Miss.
Thank you. And I would like to talk a little bit about your style and your preferences, your approach. And I would like to start by asking you, since you have a very, very intimate documentary style, how important is it to build a good relationship with your subjects?
I think it's as important as anything. There's a lot of different ingredients, in my opinion, that go into making a powerful photo. One of those that I've always gravitated towards the most is just intimacy. When you can see a photo and you feel like you're there or you're witnessing a moment that might be more challenging to get. I think that has the opportunity to really move the viewer and stir an emotion with someone. So, you know, getting close to your subjects, engaging with them, really focusing on that in the beginning, I think creates opportunities to create those types of photographs that feel intimate to the viewer and then spark an emotion within the viewer, which I think is as important with anything and, moving someone with photography. So it's a big challenge. It's a big goal. You're not always successful with it, but I think it's always at the top of the list in terms of what you're trying to achieve, at least for me.
Okay, thank you. And on the opposite side of the spectrum, sometimes you have to have taken spontaneous shots without fully knowing the subjects. How do you go about that spontaneity?
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely a variety of ways that you capture your images. I would say there's a big spectrum in terms of, you know, really getting to know your subject matter, getting their permission, spending days with them for the photos to present, and then all of a sudden you'll be on the street and an amazing moment comes up and you just happen to capture it. Obviously, there's two ends of the spectrum. Sometimes the photos fall within different places on that spectrum, but I think you just have to try to be open to it because, I mean, documentary photography, photojournalism, there is a huge component of street photography to it. Even if you may be on a ranch, right? Or you may be at someone's house, but you still are working as like a street photographer, just in terms of having quick reactions, anticipation. So I would say all those things still happen within the environment you're working in with documentary photography, even if you have put a lot of time in getting to know your subjects. Or if you might be at an event, sometimes certain locations produce different types of opportunities. For example, if you're at a public event, most people are a little more accepting of, having their picture taken. They're out in public. So obviously the situation you're in, I would say, impacts that quite a bit. But yeah, I mean, it's something that, I try to take advantage in either situation.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for sharing this specific perspective, because we have gathered quite a range of responses on the divide between street and documentary photography. And the fact that you described the street component in documentary photography is very, very interesting. So thank you. And
Can I add
yes,
one thing to that? So
absolutely.
because I talk about this with some of my photography friends quite a bit. I think the city you're in makes a big difference because, even some of the imagery in the project that I'm working with you guys on is street photography. But when you go out on the street, it's not like New York, it's not like San Francisco. Here, I think you have to ask people's permission, even if you're on the street. So that can just be, walking by or you meet someone on the corner. Hey, I'm not taking pictures. Is it okay if I take some pictures? You might be in one. For me, that's something that I do even on the street here. Whereas I mentioned in some locations, I don't think you have to do that. So I think there's a different energy, different culture based on where you are. But, I'm still out on the streets of Billings, Montana, trying to take pictures, trying to find spontaneous moments. But my preference, if possible, is to go up to people and approach them first. Doesn't mean I'm setting them up, but just let them know I'm here. And this is what I'm doing. I'm not a threat because it can be quite dangerous to certain locations. My approach on the street may be different to somebody else, who's in like New York or, a bigger city. I think the environment that I work in, even though I'm on the street and I'm working as a street photographer, I think there's certain precautions you might want to take in certain areas just based on the culture that's here.
Fair. Absolutely fair.
Okay, I would like to move to editing a little bit. So, do you have a specific step-by-step routine when editing, or do you go according to the project needs?
I would say there's like an overall aesthetic that you gravitate towards. And it's usually, and then from there, it's really the photo, you know, what it requires based on, the lighting conditions or, some of the specific aesthetics that you're trying to get out of the photo. And then obviously, the vast majority of what I do is black and white. So that helps keep it quite simple. But, I mean, there's a transition of spent a lot of time earlier in my career in the darkroom and then, gradually moving towards digital darkroom. So there's a little bit of a difference there. Obviously, it's one is very tactile and much more of a hands-on experience, which is quite lovely and pretty awesome. And then the digital world, obviously, it's screens.
How did this transition from analog to digital go?
Life circumstances. So I think I was working as a full-time photographer. So after university, for 10 years working as a full-time photographer, and that was predominantly using just black and white film and darkroom. And then I took a bit of a break, about a 7-8 year break, and I started shooting digitally mainly because I didn't have a darkroom or access to a darkroom. I built many darkrooms. I think if I built another darkroom, my wife, she would not like that.
Oh
So,
no, fair.
well, just, tear up our bathroom and, life circumstances were different. So,
Yeah.
with young kids. And I think using a digital workflow also gave me the opportunity to get back into photography just with time and the circumstances that were available to me. It just made sense.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Since there's a very tangible feeling of time passing in your photography, I was wondering how much time do you usually let pass between the end of a project and the editing process for that project, like selection, not just for post production, but like selection and the narrative of the project.
Quite a long time. Yeah. Like, for example, previous body of work, I spent 8 years photographing. And then only recently, in the last couple of years, that I actually go through the entire archive and revisit negatives. And I think your maturity and some distance away from when you were actually involved with capturing the photography, it changes your perspective. You have different motivation, different interests. So I actually quite like that. I like letting time pass. For me, I obviously sometimes you might have a good idea that right away that a photograph is going to be really powerful, or you'll finish an edit and you stare at it right away and you really like it. I've noticed that for me it takes time to really like make a final judgment on a photo, whether it's mine or somebody else's. I like to let it marinate, as I like to say, for weeks, months. So I try not to really cast judgment on a photo like for a day or two. I'll go back and look at it a couple times. Sometimes that may end up being like months or years. So yeah, I would say that time is kind of a big factor for me, and the editing and the selection process.
Yeah, no, makes lots of sense. And when do you know, in terms of shooting, when a project has run its course?
Good question. I think it's really a feeling. Sometimes I think you just know, or you might be at a certain place mentally when you're photographing a specific project. And then one day you just don't feel that way anymore and you're satisfied with what you've done, or you feel like, you've captured enough initial imagery to convey the vision that you set out to go document. So I think there's a variety of factors, but I would say it's probably just more of a feeling in a mental space or a
Yeah.
specific time in your life. Like there's a project that is, very dear to my heart, but it was done at a time, when I had more freedom and I didn't have as many responsibilities. I could go do the things I needed to create that body of work that I just couldn't even do now. So I think those are some of the factors into it as well.
Okay, thank you. Last one for me, and then I'll pass it back to you. I was wondering something completely different. So, who are the photography icons who inspired your work the most?
There's quite a few. William Albert Allard is one. Alex Webb is a big one. Harry Callahan, love his work, especially for like when he was doing it and what he was doing in the 50s with black and white street photography. Is just unbelievable. Larry Towell was amazing. Mary Ellen Mark. Yeah, I mean those. I know I'm forgetting a lot, but those are the ones that come to mind first.
Okay.
All right.
Interesting. I will keep some of those names for later for the torture game.
Yeah.
We'll see. I want to still stay on the subject of photography style and photographic approach, but I want to dive a little bit more into your themes and your subjects and your way of seeing things. Because among your subjects, you also photograph Native Americans. And the first question that we wanted to know from you is, first of all, do you find yourself approaching or navigating a documentation of a culture that is not really yours? And how do you try to stay truthful to its real representation? Because it's something very, also for today's time, something very edgy as well to discuss. So I want to know from you, how do you approach that and how do you navigate this kind of situations?
Yeah, it is challenging because it's always about getting access, right? I mean, that's like half of the battle is can you get access?
Yeah.
And I would say traditionally with Native American, the reservations, it can be quite challenging for an outsider. There's really no secret. Like you just have to go try. I mean, I literally mean like get in your car, drive, and use your instincts, and somehow try to find a way to get access to their community. Obviously, at a very high level, there are all those things that you mentioned, that do impact, I would say, your approach to it. Um, you know, the culture, being an outsider. But once you're there, ultimately, I don't really think about that stuff. It's just people. We're just people trying to connect with each other. So I try to rely on that. So in the moment when I'm like there trying to engage with people, the aspects of their culture and those things that define it don't really impact my approach or my attempts to meet people on the reservation and interact with them. I try to just treat it like any other interaction, right?
Absolutely.
Be honest with what I'm doing, why I want to take their photograph. If they're not interested, they're not interested, right? Use your
Yeah.
instincts to avoid situations that you might think are maybe not the most safe. So um, yeah, there's a lot of things that factor into it, but ultimately you do have to take some risks.
Hmm.
You have to be okay with failure. Like you have to be okay with people saying no, and that's okay.
Yeah,
You just move on, right? Like, are you okay with me
absolutely.
taking your picture? Can I follow you around for a little bit? My name is Matt. I'm a photographer from Billings. I'm working on this project. Most people are actually pretty cool, and if they're not, give them the opportunity to say no and then walk away.
Absolutely. What I was more thinking, it was more about your representation of what you see through your camera. Like, how do you balance avoiding cultural appropriation or portraying certain aspects of a community? I know that you don't do it and your work is truly, truly visible, but it's something very tough, especially as I was saying before in today's time. How do you avoid appropriate yourself of certain elements, in this case, visual elements, cultural elements that may uh, push the thinking towards different directions? I don't know if I explained myself because it's something
Uh,
documentary photography, it's always hard. It's a very hot topic of conversation as well, portraying exactly what it is without having too much of your own uh, bias. We all have bias for everything, of course, not that you have it, but just how to compensate everything. I don't know. I hope I tried
um,
to strike a
I
point.
understand what you're saying. It can be quite challenging, and sometimes you can't avoid it. I mean, like
Exactly.
the reality of what you're photographing is the reality.
Yeah.
However, one thing I try to do is like if the picture checks all the boxes for what you're trying to achieve, like if it's a strong composition, if it has the right lighting, if it has some type of energy and mood, then all that stuff kind of goes away for me, right? Like
Okay.
it might be there, but I think it doesn't scream like the intent of this photo is to highlight this specific aspect of a culture. Like it may be there, but it would be secondary. So I think
Uh,
what I'm trying to say is like the purpose is always to try to create an image that moves people with the vision that you think might be unique to yourself, regardless of the subject.
Absolutely. Exactly. This is exactly what I wanted to hear in a way,
Yeah.
because in your photograph, it's truly visible that you have a sensibility as well for the places, the people you've gone, especially for having been there in such a long period of time as well. And I wanted to ask you, connecting a little bit to what I was just saying, what have been photographing or what have taught you these communities that you have been encountering? Is there something particular that's stuck with you about these communities that you have been photographing that is truly memorable for you?
This type of photography for this many years, it's a great reminder that regardless of like who you are or where you come from, you can still go out and like have really positive interactions with the world, right? Like people are still people. There's good ones, there's bad ones, and I
Yeah,
think like the human connection, like, it's real. And when you find little moments of it here and there, whether you grew up in a big city and you're driving through a very small rural town on the reservation in Montana, you can still make connections with people, and I find that fascinating, and it's rewarding. I think we need more of that, right? Like it's important
Yeah.
to stop and talk to people, and I think we've lost that a little bit just with the advent of technology and screens. But I truly enjoy just like being in these small towns and having a curiosity and meeting people and hearing their stories. And I think what is fascinating to me to this day about that is that hasn't changed. Like if this was 20 years ago or today, you can still go do that. Yeah, and now it's even more amazing to me in a lot of ways when I do get acceptance and someone does let me like follow them around their town, like brings me into their house. It's even like more rewarding. It's almost just, wow, I can't believe like this person is trusting me and letting me follow them around and introducing me to their friends and family. I think that's quite special.
Okay. And I want just a last question, which introduces also a little bit the next section, if I may say. I wanted to know a little bit more about your process of starting to work, starting photographing, So how do you approach a series? How does a series begin for you, from the idea to the creation of a certain path that you want to follow to the very first photograph? How do you approach starting a new project?
Good question. So it's a very emotional thing. It's like something that I would say I feel. So that's the first thing, meaning no connection to a theme or a subject that I think I can go document, right? So that's the first thing. The second
Mm-hmm.
thing is, can I execute it, right? Like, is it something that I think I can pull off? Because there's been a lot of projects that I've really wanted to do, like I would love to be able to go do. But I think I was honest with myself, or you have to be honest with yourself. And it's like, I really would love to do that, but I don't think I can, right? Whether I just may not have the personality for it, can't get the access. So I think it's really important to go attempt to do projects that you have high confidence you can execute. So it starts with the idea, the confidence to go do it. The projects that I work on, I would say they're a little open ended. They're more interpretive in terms of theme. It's a looser theme, right? Like for example, I'm not documenting like a specific place of business over 6 months, right? Or a sports team. It's a little more of a idea or a theme. So what's really important for me is until I have like an image or two, it could be one image, three or four or five images that I feel capture my vision or idea. Until I have that, I don't feel like there's a project. So you have to kind of go out there and see if you can pull it off, right? And then you look at your work, you look at your imagery, and you'll be like, that's it. That's what I'm trying to capture. Like, that's the look, that's the vision. And then you can build off that. And it gives you the confidence to keep going. So it's like you're laying down a foundation. But for me personally, until I have like, could just be one image or a few images, I don't feel like I really have a project. And I've started projects where I failed at that. Like I just never
Sure.
materialized into a single photograph that I felt represented what I was trying to do.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Thank you.
Yeah,
It's a very good dive deep.
absolutely. I would like to stay on the aesthetics and technicalities topic for a couple more questions before changing the subject a little bit, because we
Mhm.
want to know your hot takes as well. So, sorry. Okay. So, we have talked about your preference for black and white, but what does it specifically give to you that color quite doesn't, aside from necessities or, with the black and white film or the necessary transition to digital?
Well, what I love about black and white, many things, but the thing I love the most about it is reality. Like still black and white photography is reality, but it's a slight tweak into like an alternate reality. So I love that the most about it. Like we all see in color, like vast majority of us. So I think it gives you an opportunity to it's a tool that helps you create an alternative world because it's just a slight enough tweak from reality.
A little different.
Very, very interesting. And, you said you prefer, in terms of living, in terms of life pace, you prefer smaller towns and smaller cities. But is there something that a metropolis could still give you to your photographer self today?
But yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love going to the big city and taking photos. I mean, yeah, I usually do it a few times a year. It's such a different energy, and like I said before, like just doing street photography in a big city, it's so different. So yeah, it's awesome. That just not a place where I actually want to live. So my opportunities to do that type of photography are just limiting. But when I'm there, I love it. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Moving to hot takes and risky stuff a little bit, I wanted to ask you something about risk specifically. Have you ever taken a picture like with full consent or with enough consent for you to be, okay? But after looking at it a little deeper, you thought, okay, maybe I caught something that I shouldn't have. Is it something you can share with us?
I mean, I without getting into too many specifics, I just think there's been some situations that I've captured, and then it's more on like, the decision to publish it side of things.
Fair.
That's a judgment call, so it's those types of things.
Okay. And what does it take for you to say, better leave this one in the archive?
This is a very rare situation. It hasn't happened to me in a long. This is more like, working at newspapers and those conversations with editors, right? Things that are more in the public domain. I don't really encounter this much anymore. It's been a while, so it's hard for me to give like a specific example.
That's all right. We mostly wanted to hear about your approach rather than specific situation. But speaking of situation, Ed, what's the biggest scare that you've had during the duration of a project?
Man, I mean, biggest scare. I've had a few confrontations that almost got physical, but didn't get there, luckily. Um, I mean, I've done some things that I probably wouldn't do anymore when I was younger, like in terms of taking risks. Um, like I picked up hitchhikers, like probably things I would not do anymore. Things like
Fair.
that. Yeah. Um, I mentioned earlier, you rely heavily on your instincts. And so even when in the rare situation where you may have a possible physical encounter with someone not liking you being there, do you have the right instincts and skills to like alleviate the situation and de-escalate the situation so it doesn't turn into anything further? I do think those things are important, but it's a non-tangible skill set, if that makes sense. It's
Yeah, no, it
just
does make
something that,
sense.
yeah.
Okay, last one for me on this topic. Speaking of risks specifically, is there a risk for documentary photography to become more of a style than actual intent?
Sure, I'd say there's that risk. Sure, yeah, there's always that risk. I don't know if that necessarily makes it better or worse, though, right? I mean, to me, beauty is always in the eye of the beholder. Um, if those stylized documentary photos really emotionally impact someone who sees them, but yeah, I think it does happen. Can it happen? And maybe it's a fine line. Like maybe walking that line is where the best work is, because there's just straight up taking a photo of something, and then there's technical aspects of all the photography components and making it also beautifully aesthetically. So where do those two things meet? I would say that's kind of an important thing to keep an eye on. Right?
Okay, thank you. I'm passing the ball back to Lou. because we're talking
Okay.
about the important stuff.
Exactly. I wanted to actually move on and go to the open call discussion that I wanted to open with you, especially for the project that we're doing together, which is the Western Edge. So as I was saying before, you were selected as a winner in the series category of last year contest. There was an exhibition here in Italy with your work, printed publications on the magazine, and now we're doing together a book, particularly on the project. So, what I wanted to ask you is the very first question: why did you choose the Western Edge as a work to submit to the Eyeshot Open Call?
So it's a body of work that I had been working on for about 5 years or 4 years at that point.
Hmm.
And after really evaluating everything, I was confident that there was a project there, like a compelling, story or something that could move the viewer. Felt like I had something to say, and that it was a body of work that was at the point where there was enough of it to, have a strong use case, book publication.
Okay. Okay. And how difficult was the selection process for you? Because you can submit up for this in the first part up to 15 photographs, and your series is pretty big project as well. How did you approach that the selection process that you were doing before again submitting?
Yeah, it's always so hard, right?
Yeah,
And then yeah, I think you just got to trust your instinct and rely on the things that you've learned. Mm, each format's so different. It's like if you're gonna
yeah,
use an assortment of images to put on a website, you would probably do things specific for that than you would with a book, right? Or you would with a
yeah.
publication. So I think the format of the thing you're submitting for dictates a lot of what you choose and how you do it. So that always impacts it. But yeah, it's always very hard. I think you want to find images that you think are strong and convey your vision. You also want to avoid redundancy. Sometimes you may want to add an image that may not be the strongest. Ultimately makes the group of images that you submit more cohesive as a series. So those are some of the factors.
That made it for you. And what was your reaction when you found out that you were among the finalists and among the selected one, especially then among the winners in this case?
Man,
How
it
did you
felt
take it?
like it was surreal. Yeah, it was pleasantly surprising, but yeah, very, very, very
Yeah.
surprising. Just obviously, there's so much amazing photography out there and talented photographer. Just I don't know. Not something you really imagine, So
Yeah, sure.
yeah, I was quite surprised. Yeah, yeah, quite surprised.
Okay. And diving a little bit more still on the open call, and maybe so you can also share maybe any opinions or feedbacks or advice that you would like to give maybe to future participants of the open call. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think makes a series or a photo compelling to you or working? Because of course it's subjective, absolutely, and it's in the eye of the audience, but what is it
Yeah,
for you more specifically?
for me, it doesn't move me emotionally. I think that's like paramount at the forefront. Like, does it spark something emotionally in me that I don't know, gives me some type of feeling uh, that moves you? I mean, I think it's a very general answer, but I think it's the most important one, right? I mean, because yes, there are, the basics, the boxes you need to check, like to get a good photo, lighting, composition, all those things, subject matter. But
Yeah,
sometimes those things aren't there and the photo still moves you, right? So, I,
absolutely.
and then sometimes all those things are there and the photo it's good, but sometimes the photo has like something a little extra, like just got that mojo. You know what it is, but it's just wild. It's alive, right? It does something for you. That's the most important thing.
Okay. Very last question, then I'll pass it on to you. Is there anything you would advise the participants of this year open call to do, to think, to how to approach? Is there any message you would like to share, or more than a message, advice that you would have wanted to hear if it was you?
Don't be afraid to really trust your vision. Go for it. Really stuff that you believe in, submit images that you believe in, and that are bold and maybe risky, but again, I think the unique voices tend to stand out because they really believe in their vision.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Amazing.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. And I would like to ask you to, before we move on with a couple specific questions I have about the Western Edge, I would like you to give a small message to our viewers on all of our social media channels about the Western Edge and the Eyeshot Open Call, like the fact that it was selected as one of the winners of last year's Open Call. Would you like to give a small message to our viewers?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm embarking on this publishing journey with Eyeshot as a result from being one of the selected winners of last year's Open Call, which is incredibly exciting. Uh, I'm grateful for anyone who's watching this. It's amazing to be a part of this. Very excited. Yeah, looking forward to the journey. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I would like to move to the Western Edge properly. So, the Western Edge is about the West, and the West has a very specific iconography outside the United States, even fueled by all the works of fiction and all of the non-American works of fiction that also feature the West. I can think of a few ones, but what is the West really today for those who live in it?
Well, I mean, I think it's quite a few things, right? It's a place where you have incredible freedom. I would say that, that's pretty symbolic within the lifestyle out here. Open spaces, deep connection to the landscape, right? I mean, I would say the people that are typically out in this type of gravitate more towards being in the wilderness or having activities that put themselves in that type of environment. So there's a strong connection to the land. There's ranching communities who have lived and worked this land for generations, and that is a strong component to the culture here, right? And then you have more people who are kind of wanting to get away, maybe escape to someplace else, start over. So I would say there are different walks of life for sure. And I've also always I've seen it as a place of contradiction, which has always been very, very compelling to me, right? Um, you know, you do have this open space and this incredible landscape, but sometimes, that is also in parallel with people who don't have as many opportunities as would in other locations, or poverty, right, or substance abuse. There is incredible freedom here, as I mentioned, with you know just the open space, but sometimes resources are much limited in these small towns, more limited in these small towns than they would be in areas with bigger populations. So those contradictions have always really been interesting for me. um, Trying to explore those, visually, and create images that have some type of storytelling impact on those things has always been important for me.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing such a vast insight. I have just a couple more questions, but I was thinking specifically about ranchers because there's a very, very specific mythology of the
Mhm.
rancher. But how does a rancher live today?
Does a rancher live today? I'd say it's a lot like they've lived for generations, right? They wake up and they work their land. Yeah. Yeah. So I'd say that they're outside the vast majority of the time. They're working with livestock. So yeah, I would say it probably really hasn't changed that much. Obviously, there's technology, right? People have, you know, smartphones with them everywhere they go,
Of course.
but everything's kind of the same as it was, 50 years ago, which is another really fascinating component about it, right? You do kind of feel like you're removed from time. There is like that component of it. Obviously, there's that, but then there is the influence of modernized culture and technology. So yeah, those are definitely things that make it pretty interesting.
Okay, last one for me as well, because it's very, very interesting to hear you talk about this region that has so many specifics, so to speak, for lack of better words. And my last question would be, what's the contrast that stuck with you the most in the West?
I think the thing that always just really impacts me the most with being out here is how quickly you can feel like you are just removed from anything else, like removed from society. I mean, I live in a city of 120,000 people, but in 20 minutes, I can literally feel like I'm the only person on earth, right? And that to me there's just something very special about that. There's something very romantic about that, therapeutic about that. And I mean, I think you feel that here when you interact with people. As I mentioned, I think that's why a lot of people do come here. Whether that's for positive or negative reasons, it is it is a part of life out here. I've always loved that about it.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing all this. And I'm good to go. So,
Yes, Matt, I think we're done with the boring part,
yeah.
if you want to call it like that. So we're
Hopefully, it
done with all
wasn't
the
too boring.
questions. No,
No.
just not our questions, of course. So we hope we made you feel also comfortable and feel free to share any opinions you had before.
So, part 1 is officially over, and see you in part 2.
Welcome back again to the unfiltered part. We're gonna have a little sesh of games, and let's see how it goes. And do not overthink your answer, as Marilu was saying before. Whatever comes to your mind, it's totally fine. We're gonna start with the rapid fire questions, and whatever it is on your mind, just shoot your shot.
It's yes or no answers.
Not really,
Not
but
really.
we want you to rely on your gut instinct the most. So,
Okay.
first answer is a good answer, even if you change your mind.
Exactly. Okay, Matt. So the first question would be 3 words to describe yourself.
Passionate, emotional, and curious.
All right. How many rolls of film have you developed through the years? Do you remember the approximate number?
No, but thousands. Yeah. I don't know the number, but thousands.
Good.
Okay. Are you more of a morning person or a night person? Night owl.
Morning.
All right. What's your first photographic memory?
Do you mean like the photo I took, like in my career, or
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
anything?
Yeah, the first photo you've taken that you remember specifically, even both as an amateur or a pro.
Sure. I think the first photo I really remember was I took of my dad.
Nice. What was your first camera?
It was a Canon EOS Rebel film. I don't know which model specifically, but I think one from like the late 90s. Yeah.
Love that. Love it.
What's a feeling that you always get before you shoot, right before you shoot?
Uh, Excited.
Right.
When do you know that you got the right photo?
Not until I come back and see it, whether that's developing the negative or on the monitor.
Great.
If you had to pick one, composition or instinct?
Composition.
All right. All right.
That's fun. That's very,
That's
very
tough.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do strike me as a very analytic person in your
Yeah.
photography.
That's true. That's true. What role does luck play in your photography, if you think it plays a role? Or chance more than
A little
luck?
bit. Yeah. There's always, I mean, I think hard work, preparation, provides opportunity for you to take advantage of luck.
What's a, what's an element that a good story always needs to have, according to you?
Some type of mystery.
Fair enough. And on a scale from 1 to 10, how important is it to know your subject?
7.5.
All right.
Okay. What makes a detail meaningful?
The detail. What makes a detail meaningful?
For you, that you feel like it could be game changing
Oh,
in a photograph,
detail.
of course. Yeah, detail. Pardon me.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it's the hidden details that really take a photo from like an 8 or a 9 to like a 10, right? That's the ones that are surprising or that you don't notice right away. But then when you do, you're like, oh man, I didn't like
Damn.
that's just amazing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
3 things that fascinate you about rural life.
Things that fascinate me about rural life. How far people drive that's considered normal.
To get to
Right? Like
places.
driving 2 hours here is like just considered normal, right?
Damn, it's
Yeah.
pretty strange for us.
Yeah. Just working with horses, just fascinating. It's just something I've always really gravitated towards. And then I would say the strong family values are very strong in all areas.
Okay. I wanted to ask you because I had one that just came up in my mind that I wanted to, we discussed it before. And I wanted to ask you if you could travel back in time and photograph any era without limitation or anything, like you're free to go. What would you photograph and why?
Man, I would time travel to like the Wild West, 1870s, 1880s, and I'd like to see those outlaws back then.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Have you ever taken a photo that made you cry?
Have I ever taken a photo person that made me cry?
Yeah.
Not literally, not literal tears. No, no.
Okay.
But ones that have moved me emotionally. Yeah.
Okay. A trend in documentary photography you wish disappeared.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I don't know if there's anything that comes to mind. I would just say in general, I think that subject matter is obviously very important, but I don't think subject matter trumps, you know, photography. I think they have to
Is there a word in the field of photography that you feel is a little bit overused, overhyped?
feel it overhyped. No, nothing I can think of.
What's a photography dream for you in terms of a project or a place you would like to shoot in?
I mean, a photography dream is like waking up and having nothing but like 2 weeks ahead of me to go just hit the road and take pictures and not worry about anything else but photography.
Love that.
Yeah,
Beautiful. Really, really
sounds
beautiful.
amazing.
Last one, the last one for this game. What do you believe in?
What do I believe in? I believe in following your passions. I believe in family. I believe in friends. I believe in trying to make each day the best that it can possibly be.
Amazing. Thank you.
Sounds beautiful. Thank you. Okay, now we can move on to the torture game. Lu, will you do the honors?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is a game for anyone who's coming here for the first time. It's a game of this or that. So we'll be giving Matt a list of photography legends, and the surviving name of the round gets to the next round until there's only one winner left. No second chances, only gut instinct, just like before.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right.
So I will start off by asking you, Dorothea Lange or James Nachtwey?
But
James Nachtwey or Gordon Parks?
James Nachtwey.
James Nachtwey or Robert Frank? Okay. Robert Frank or Sebastião Salgado? Robert Frank or Eugene Smith? Okay, Robert Frank or Alex Webb? You gave me this before.
Alex Webb.
Okay. Alex Webb or Lewis Hine? I guess then we have a winner for this section. It didn't, and it's Alex Webb, so that's fun. And it wasn't too tough, I guess, for you, which is an icon.
Knocked away Robert Frank with stuff.
Yeah, I saw you. You were a little bit shaky there. Tough. Very, very tough.
Yeah.
So, Matt, thank you. Thank you for doing this interview with us, for playing with us. And again, we hope we made you feel as comfortable as we were talking to you. It was very, very pleasant.
Yeah.
And thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you for being with us today. And to all of your viewers, thank you for watching. Thank you for being with us. Keep supporting us, keep liking, keep commenting, keep subscribing, because what's just one small click to you means the world for us. And support Matt Eyes, the Western Edge. Thank you for your time, and see you in the next episode. Bye.